Hi guys, what are we going to do today? Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to talk to you about some of the pros and the cons, mostly pros, on using different types of transfers. There are so many varieties of transfers out there. There are small little rub-ons, there are bigger ones from other companies. I carry IOD and I really like using them, but we're going to go through the pros and cons as we go along in this video. Let's get started. So when it comes to transfers, they come in all shapes and sizes. IOD and many companies put them in tubes like this, and they could be smaller pieces like 8.5 by 11, or they could be as large as 24 by 36. And sometimes they come as one large piece, and sometimes they're cut apart. Everybody does it in their own way. IOD now has gone to pads, which I really like. Besides the fact it makes it easier to ship, they are easier to use and it is easier to cut them apart. They aren't flying around in a tube. You can cut out the pieces you need and you can just use what you need and leave the rest intact. Many times when I'm using a transfer and cutting a lot out of it, I will take my extra pieces and cut them apart, and I will either use masking tape or little staples, and then I put them in folders so I know one is script, one is florals, one is birds, so whatever they are, so when I need an extra piece, I can go to that folder and get them, or you could put them in a box or whatever you would like. The big thing on this, and this probably is a con, is you must have the backing attached, because if this comes off and it sticks to something, the transfer will come off and you won't be able to use it. So stamps you can use over and over. But when it comes to transfers, they are a one-time use. So I try to be very particular on what I want to use, and I do cut them apart and I save every scrap that I've got. So the nice thing about the new IOD transfers is they do have grid lines, so it makes it very easy. So let's say you were doing a particular project and you needed to cut it, maybe a drawer, and it needed to be cut at a certain spot. You can see the grid line and you could do a nice straight cut and it will be right where you want. The versatility and different mediums that you can use these on, whether it's a large transfer or little bits in scraps. Of course, you can use them on wood, and we'll be showing you some furniture pieces that we've done. Some smaller projects. We did several of these as videos, so if you want to look back through the videos, you can see step by step how we did them. This was a fun book project that I have on my bookshelf, and I just painted the book. I did seal it first. I wanted to make sure that it stuck and adhered very, very well. And then I cut it apart, so this is a fun one. I could line up, cut apart, put it on each book to make a large picture with this. We had actually put our transfers and done some decoupage with transfers on fabric, on this fabric bag. Well, if you're going to have to wipe down a fabric bag, we used heat and vinyl over the top so I could easily wipe it down if I needed to wipe the front down. You could also put several layers of sealer over the top so you'd be able to wipe it down, but I probably still would not put it in my washing machine. You can put the transfers on so many items. You can see I just put the transfers right onto the plastic and did a real quick sealer over the top. And the sealer you use doesn't matter as long as you have something that will work well on this. I know there are one or two sealers people recommend not using for transfers, but the majority of them really do work fine. So you need to do a little bit of research on them, or if it's going to be used all the time, on how durable of a sealer. A sealer can be anything from a polyacrylic that you get at the hardware store to a water-based fancy finish, whether it's matte, gloss, or satin. Sometimes we even just use waxes as a sealer. A lot of times when you have transfers, you'll have just little bits and pieces that you've saved. We had done some of these little jewelry pieces on glass, and that was really fun. And it's sealed with glass, so I didn't have to do much with it. So this one was very, very simple, and it's enclosed. So some button pins we did. It is also enclosed with your plastic sheeting over the top that seals the button pin. But you can see how just a fun paper and a few transfers can give you a really wild look with just a little bit of effort. This is a video we had done, and it's a paper bag basket. We just used paper bags. We did paint them and do seal them. Your transfer goes on very, very well, but then I sealed it afterward because it is just on paper that if you squished it or cracked it, it might want to crack. So after you seal it, it stays adhered very, very well. If you have egg cartons or other cardboard, you could simply just add a transfer, put a sealer over the top, and you are done, and you have very cute packaging. If you want to get a little bit more creative and have some fun, a pot we had painted. And then we added the florals coming out of it to give us a nice piece of art. Well, let's get to some other projects we have used transfers on. So you can get such a variety of transfers, whether it's small pieces for a small project. Even like here, we have circular pieces that we used in circular frames. That made that very nice because it fit perfectly in there. Transfers that are just small pot images that you could just put on your pots and just cut them out, put them on, and they fit and layer perfectly. An old tin. This went on very well. Just a wash of paint, but I did put a quick wipe on poly on this just so that I knew my transfers would stick very well, and then I sealed over the top again. I love to do windows with transfers, and we're going to show you several different styles. Some I have painted the back of the window, put the transfer on the front. Others I have painted the front of the window and put the transfer on the front. This one I used a decoupage paper on the window, and then I added to the front of this with all the extra bugs and fish, and it tied in with the paper, so it just gave it a little bit more depth and interest to the piece that I was doing. Even on this little chair, I took a few of the words I had left from another transfer and put it on here to give it some interest. And you're gonna find pottery. It sticks to pottery and glass very, very well. Here is another larger piece. I didn't cut it apart. I used the whole piece. So you can see there are so many ways you can use these depending on the project or the look you're trying to achieve. So here's an example that I had painted the back in a blue and used a very florally transfer on the front. On a piece like this, if you wouldn't necessarily have to seal the front of this, and it is going to stay on here very nicely, but you can. You just want to be very careful with brush strokes on the front of your glass. The only con I would say is a lot of people would like to take these and put them outside. And I've noticed, or even inside, but in a window, the sun will fade them slightly. So you want to be mindful of that. And here's a completely different look with another transfer, but it's also in a window where I painted the front of the glass. I used a barnwood plank stamp in the back and added the transfer to the front. I did seal the top of this one, and I wasn't as worried about brush strokes because of all the texture that's already behind it. So I had even found an old refrigerator that I painted and even put one on the front of a refrigerator and sealed it. This was a really fun large piece. I think it was from a department store, and I used several transfers. So I had used my Stores and Harrison across the front to start, and then I added florals into the bottom. And it so broke apart. Each piece still looks very interesting, even though it's completely filled. You see, we had done some dress forms, and I used transfers. Even the one rounded one turned out cute around the neck of the dress form. So after watching this, I hope you've come up with your own ideas, and I hope it's given you some insight to think about. What are the pros? What are the cons? What could I use it for? Maybe I don't want to use it. If you wanted to do a large piece, they have such beautiful images out there that come as one large piece. So you don't have any thinking involved. You just need to put it together. You put that up and it's like a tapestry on your piece. You just have smaller projects, and some of the transfers you can cut apart and take one transfer and use it for many, many projects, which would be really, really fun too. Also, there are so many themes, styles, and sizes that you can find something for almost anything you would like to do and transform a room, a piece, or anything else you can think of. So I would think of the cons is it is a one-time use because it makes it so simple you don't have to think about it. It just goes right on. But it does cost a little bit more for a one-time use, but all the work is done for you already. Also, making sure you use your correct paint or whatever it is you're wanting to put it on so it stays on well. And then also making sure you're using the correct sealer for the top. It's a little tricky to use outside or in the sun, so you need to do a little more research on that. But I hope this has given you some ideas, and maybe you can find something that you really love, and I'd love to see what you come up with. And thanks, guys.